Good evening, members, those public who are joining us in the meeting room and those who are watching or listening online. Apologies for absence and substitutions, please. Councillor Hubbard. Thank you very much. Councillor Joy.
I'm substituting for Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you. And Councillor Crozet, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm subbing for Councillor Pearce.
Thank you. Is it your wish that we approve the record of the meeting held on the 6th of May 2026? Thank you very much. Urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. I know of none. Declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. There are none then. Before we move into the agenda proper, the planning applications, I've had a request from Councillor Coombs to speak on applications 5 and 6 as the ward member. Can I take it that has the approval of the committee, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Coombs may wish to come. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm just getting myself sorted out up here, so it's Sam Pilbeam, Senior Planner, to present the agenda item 5, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the conversion of an existing Class C3 dwelling house into a Class sui generis 7-bedroom, 8-person HMO, alongside minor external alterations as well. The application site is located within the urban area of Gillingham. Specifically, it's cited centrally within Park Avenue, opposite Gillingham Park, which is located to the west, and within the threshold of the Gillingham Park Conservation Area. Looking at the more immediate street scene, this generally comprises of a mix between detached and semi-detached properties, relatively large footprints, and that are separated from each other by linked detached garages and insets away from the boundary as well. Generally, the properties are 2 stories in height. However, quite a numerous amount of them do also support additional habitable space within the roofscape too. Just drawing attention to their position to the adjacent footpath as well, you can see there is also quite a visual separation between them here, which you'll see in the further site photos. Just turning to parking though, before that, there's a mixture of both on and off street parking within this area. However, it is situated outside of a car parking management zone, meaning that typical conditions to secure parking management strategy can't be implemented in this case. As such, the applicant has submitted a car parking survey, finding the existing parking threshold at 73%, which is very comfortably below the generally accepted margin of 95% in urban areas such as this. As such, it's not considered the proposed change of use would result in adverse harm to the existing conditions of parking within the area. And moving into the site photos here, the application property is on the left-hand side. You can see it's that relatively large, with a separation through that linked garage to the side. And again, you see that separation from the footpath to the front. I would also draw members' attention to the bay window, in particular at the first floor, which is where a proposed railing is sought to be installed. This is to sort of reinstate that balcony to the front, similar to the properties that we see on the right-hand side image. Just drawing further attention to this property on the right-hand side image, it has been amalgamated from number 15 and 17 into a 13-bedroom Class C2 care home, and is currently operational. Adjacent to the dwelling, sorry, this makes up the other half of the semi-detached pair, which is a vacant Class C2 care home and is also seeking permission within this committee to be used as a 7-person sui generis HMO. Again, you can see the separation distances between the property and then the rest of the street scene following that down. In terms of existing elevations, there's not too many proposed changes, so just draw attention to the front. As I said, there's a balcony supposed to be reinstated, and then to the rear, within the roof, we have 3 roof lights blocking up of the rear door, as well as a window proposed in this door frame here. There's no demolitions proposed in this instance. Internally, the property is relatively large, spanning numerous floors, including a basement. As existing, it has a total of 6 bedrooms, including 2 within the roof. And then you've got supporting sort of kitchen, living rooms on the first floor, as well as I said, that basement area below. Turning to the proposed elevations now. Here we can see sort of a general model of what that balcony is going to look like, and the details of which have been proposed to be secured by condition 2. And then we have conservation roof lights within the roofscape. This door being blocked up just to ensure this flat roof can't be used as a balcony, resulting in overlooking between neighbours. And then likewise, you have a window on the ground floor where that door frame is originally. Internally, we have a total of 7 rooms, 2 en-suites on the ground floor, 3 on the first floor, and 2 within the roof. All of the bedrooms exceed the standards set out within the MPPG and also are afforded sufficient degrees of light and outlook. Supporting these bedrooms is a central communal area which measures 28 metres squared in area, as well as having additional kitchen on the first floor and sort of utility room on the basement, which helps take some of that sort of general day-to-day pressure off that communal area, meaning it can be used more so for recreation and leisure. Given the bedroom's sort of oversized nature and in conjunction with the basement and sort of kitchen on that first floor, it is considered the 28 square metres is considered acceptable for allowing the functioning of the property as a 7-bedroom, 8-person HMO in this instance. And here we've included a section of the roof plan too, which just shows the head height within the 2 existing bedrooms, but also proposed to be used bedrooms as part of the change of use, which, as you can see, significantly exceed the standards in the MPPG once again. Just moving on to the density of HMOs in the area. The map on the right, as members will know, has been taken from the council's HMO evidence paper with a 500-metre radius applied in this instance. There's a total of 33 HMOs, which you can see marked with the red dots within this area, which represents 1.3% of the housing stock within that 500-metre radius. Sorry. More specifically, looking at Park Avenue itself, it is understood there is a vacant care home to the north and a operating care home to the south. However, given the physical separation between the properties and sort of the wider pattern of use along the street scene, which, as you can see, is very limited in terms of numbers of HMOs, it is not considered this proposal would represent an undue proliferation of HMOs in the area, nor would it erode the general prevailing residential character of the area either. As such, the application is recommended for approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sam, for the presentation. We now turn to Councillor Coombs. When you're ready, you'll have 5 minutes exactly, and I shall adhere to that strictly, and obviously that will be the limit of the contribution to debate. But over to you if you're ready, Councillor Coombs. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sam, for the summary. So, as has been mentioned, Park Avenue is a residential road with a total of 58 separate properties in a conservation area opposite Gillingham Park, which is a beautiful green flag Victorian park, which is extremely popular and well used. This proposal to change a 6-bed HMO to a 7-bed, 8-person HMO. A previous application to change from a 6-person to an 8-person HMO was refused in December 2025. Some of the reasons for the refusal have been addressed, but I'd like to focus on the parking demands. In the refusal, it was stated that the proposal would not be able to meet the required off-street parking demands for an 8-bed dwelling. And it goes on to state that because the proposal falls outside the car parking management zone, the council doesn't have any means to impose limits to the number of parking permits accepted against the property. It's not enough to say that this is put forward as a car-free proposal, because without any means to impose this, it's meaningless. The refusal to acknowledge that a large number of properties could not accommodate off-street parking and that parking pressures would be significant and that a parking beat survey would be required. This survey was carried out, and while it complies with the specification for a Lambeth survey, it doesn't take account of this property's unique location opposite a very popular green flag park. The survey was carried out in the early hours of the morning on a weekday, but this location is at its busiest during the day, particularly at weekends and during school holidays when large numbers of Medway residents visit the park. Indeed, when I met with residents at 11:15 a.m. last Wednesday to discuss this proposal, I was really hard pushed to find a parking place because the school holidays were on and the park was full of children enjoying the facilities there. In the refusal from December 2025, it states that the proposal would lead to intensification of the use of the site, increased comings and goings, volumes and noise, and possibly disturbance and nuisance. The officer recommendation for this proposal, despite being for the same increase in the number of residents, makes no such mention. In fact, states there is no concern with respect to the potential clustering of such uses, proliferation and the associated detrimental impacts upon adjoining residential amenity. So what has changed to make this no longer a consideration when it was an important factor for the virtually same proposal in December? The density of multi-occupancy properties has always also been misrepresented. This proposal is a semi-detached property adjoining 11 Park Avenue, which will be discussed next on the agenda, which seeks permission to change use to a 7-person HMO. If both are approved, this will give rise to 3 HMOs in the street of 58 individual properties, giving a 5.2% density in this street. But the fact that they are adjoining semi-detached properties also has to be taken into account. If both are approved, this would mean a pair of semi-detached properties with 15 people in multiple occupancy. If this were a single application by one developer, would we really be considering it acceptable to approve a 15-person HMO in a residential street in a conservation area? And this is before you look at the link-attached property on the other side at 15 Park Avenue, which is a 13-bed care home for adults with serious mental health needs. So should this proposal and the next be approved, 3 adjoining properties would have 28 single occupants between them. The next 13 properties are family homes, and then we have a 28-bed care home at number 43 for men with complex needs, including substance abuse and mental health issues. This means that in a stretch of just 17 properties, 14 would be multi-occupant, accommodating a total of 56 people. This residential road in a conservation area opposite a green flag park is becoming overpopulated with multi-occupancy properties, and to add to this will exacerbate the issues that come with this, and which were identified in the previous application, which was refused, but seem no longer to be a concern, including parking pressures, increased waste, risk of antisocial behaviour, noise, additional comings and goings, littering and other potential nuisance. This proposal does not fit with the emerging local plan. Policy T8 supports planning applications for HMOs where they are, among other things, they do not adversely affect the character and amenity of an area, do not contribute to an over-provision of HMOs in an area, and do not generate excessive parking demands. I therefore ask members to carefully consider the detrimental impact this proposal will have on the character of the area, the neighbouring properties, traffic and parking, and refuse this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coombs, and thank you for keeping to time. I don't know whether officers wanted to come back on any of that for the moment, but I was thinking of throwing it out open to members. So any member, please. Yeah, I think I spotted Councillor Nestroff, then Councillor Gilbourne, then thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I must say, I don't like this proposal at all. My children use Gillingham Park very often, and sticking 15 people in 2 small homes, it could create antisocial behavior. We all know that. Every time when there is a HMO, there is antisocial behavior around that. Parking. About parking, Councillor Coombs mentioned it, but I have to mention it as well. I don't know when the survey was done. Each time I go there in the evening after 6 o'clock, there is not a single parking space. Most residents that live there, they have to drive around in adjoining roads to find a parking space. So I think this survey that was done on the road was done at the wrong time. Maybe we should redo the survey to have few days so we have full data. And as well, with the application, the rooms seem small. I mean, the application itself, it kind of ticks all the boxes, but just about whoever designed it, the rooms are big enough for the wall, but we all know that still people don't feel confident and don't feel comfortable living in such small rooms. Trash collection. How is the collection of rubbish gonna happen when 15 people live in 2 properties? Who's gonna manage that? How are we gonna make sure that the road is not covered in trash? Because most people, you know very well, they just put their bin bags the day before, and then the next day the trash is all over the road. As well, the other issue is, these are 2 separate applications next door. If one of them was already approved, we would not approve the second one because it will have a proximity of a HMO next door. But since they are both coming together at the same time, there is no proximity of HMO. So I think it gets too many HMOs next to each other. That's my point.
Thank you, Councillor Nestroff. Now, a number of people put their hands up at the same time, so can I just check? At the moment, I've got Councillor Gilbourne, Councillor Galvin and Councillor Hubbard, and you, Councillor Joy, I'll come to you, sorry. And yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Bowen as well. Councillor Gilbourne.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sam, for the presentation. Whenever something comes up in a conservation area, I think it's, beholden on the members of this committee to make sure that the property itself is preserved to be conserved in its current state as much as possible. And it's always a shame to see what were large family houses not be large family houses anymore. But seeing the report and the fact that there are care homes and another HMO on the street, because of their size, it's so difficult for a modern family to be able to not just afford them, but manage them. So the fact that other properties on the road are now care homes doesn't surprise me. So having an application to become an HMO of the scale it's talking about doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's a shame, as I say, but in planning terms, I can't see anything that I can object to other than, as my fellow councillor pointed out, the concerns about the parking survey. Because it is a lovely park. I remember walking there with my children when they were younger with our dog, and it was always just a lovely little park to go to, with amenities, on Watling Street, just to the south of it. I think what I would want to make sure that the aspect of rubbish is an important one. I've said about parking. But just that preservation of the nature of that sort of property would be imperative, really, because it's such a lovely row of properties, and whatever can be done within the conditions to make sure that stays would mean that I can give it my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Officer, for the really good presentation. I must admit, it's been a few years since I've actually been in Park Avenue, and when I was studying the agenda earlier in the week, looking on the Google street scene, it was very disappointing to see the state of these properties. As can clearly be seen in the first photographs in the officer's presentation. Park Avenue used to be one of the premier posh addresses in Medway. It was on a par to the Ridgeway in Chatham or Priestfields in Rochester, and it's sad to see it's going downhill like this. But as my colleague has just said, these large houses are not now suitable for family use. Very few people could afford to heat and maintain properties of this size, and it's the alternative uses will have to be found, which in some cases, if you look up and down towns, it's been care homes, sometimes they've been turned into offices. There seems to be a view that people living in HMOs somehow are different from the rest of humanity. They're more likely to leave rubbish lying around. They're more likely to indulge in antisocial behaviour. I'd say that's rubbish. You can't demonise people just because they want or need to live in an HMO. We've had this time and time again.
I just need to have a point of order here. I never said that people living in HMO are rubbish or different kind than the other. I just said that it stimulates antisocial behavior because when you cramp so many people together, they tend to have conflicts. So I don't know what you insinuated from what I said, but if you're referring to me, you are wrong.
Yeah. I think the way we'll deal with this is I'll invite officers in a minute to come back on the question of waste management, Councillor Nestroff. Councillor Gelvin, please continue.
Right. I still stick with what I said, that there's no reason to blame residents of HMOs for not behaving as they should. This is a very large property. I believe that it will be occupied by people who probably can afford to pay a slightly higher rate than some of the HMOs will be in the back street, because it's a premium property in a premium area. I can see no reason on planning grounds that we could possibly turn this down. And we all know what the consequences are for this council if we do go against an officer's recommendation without having very good planning reasons to back that up. All the objections that have been mentioned by the two councillors before me, none of them will stack up, as far as I can see, as sufficient planning grounds to turn this application down. Having said that, there is something I would like to suggest, and if the Vice Chair could take this on board, because I would like to propose an additional thing. My mind's gone. Note on the planned condition. The balconies on both these properties, and this one, the balcony's missing, which is a great shame, but they're quite a prominent feature on the property. When I was a director of the Medway Development Company, all the leases that I signed for the flats in Chatham, a number of which did have balconies, there was a condition on that lease that the balcony could not be used for storage or for the drying of clothing and whatever. And I would like that if we could put that condition on this property and also the one next door, because the balcony is a feature, it is a conservation area. We want to try and get that area back up to what it used to look like. And I think that would be quite a reasonable condition if we've been prepared to put it on to our own council-built properties. I don't think it's too onerous to expect that condition to be onerous for these applications either. So I'd like to move that, that we do that. If somebody would kindly second that, I'd be very happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin. I propose now to take Councillors Hubbard, Joy and Bowen, and then we'll pause for officers to come back on some of those points. Councillor Hubbard, please.
Just hearing about children in the park, it just reminded me, there's a picture on my mantelpiece at home showing my wife as a toddler pedaling in Gillingham Park. So, yes. I have to say that the common areas for this proposal are quite generous. You know, you've got a kitchen and dining area, you've got a second kitchen, you've got a large laundry. So the accommodation common accommodation for all the bedrooms looks pretty good. What I'm concerned about is the fact that the diagram that shows HMO density. Well, yes, okay, but it doesn't show other properties like nursing homes where they are. So I think it would be really useful for the committee is to have a diagram that shows all the types of properties that are split and multiple residents live there. So it's care homes, nursing homes and HMOs, because what's here is a little bit misleading because you're only talking about one element. So that is my big concern. So if that can be rectified in future applications, obviously not tonight because the next application has the same problem. But I feel that that will be beneficial for the committee, well, members of the committee, if I'm not here.
Thank you, Councillor Hubbard. Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Chair. So reading through this report, we've currently got, listen to the officers, we've currently got a 6-bedroom HMO. So we would honestly assume that with a 6-bedroom, we'd have at least 6 cars. So if we go into the parking, if we've got an 8-bedroom, we're potentially looking at 1 or 2 more cars. Hopefully, maybe 1 or 2 of them won't drive. Within the close proximity of the hospital and the amount of staff that work in the hospital, it seems with the style of the property, it will probably be slightly higher end of the HMO market, and with the plans that have been submitted, it looks to me as though they're putting in that extra effort, and that's probably where they're going to be targeting for things. I know you can't guarantee that, but obviously with that close proximity, which will be walking distance to the hospital. I just went to thinking with currently there's 6 people living in their property. I'm just concerned as if we change it, are we making 6 people homeless and chucking them out on the street? I know it's not necessarily a planning consideration, but with the housing issues that we've got in Medway and living availability and affordability, are we just going to be adding on to that? So just a little bit of concern on them sort of areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, I think it looks quite a sympathetic conversion, but the density of the 2 potential HMOs next door to each other concerns me, especially with what else is in the street.
Thank you very much. Now, I think there's a few things there for officers to address. I've got the point about the condition of the balconies and a possible extra condition. Then other non-family homes in the area, waste management, and the position of existing and future residents were amongst the points that members raised. Is it over to you, Sam, to deal with those, or any of your colleagues? Mr. Hockley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think in terms of the the points that have been raised. I think members did deal with a number of those throughout the debate and questioning themselves in any case. But and again, in terms of the antisocial behaviour of those occupants, obviously that is a matter which I think Councillor Galvin dealt with well, and it's not to say that was a point that you were making in terms of the individual occupiers of this potential property, but just a symptom of more people in a smaller area. So, but I think, as I say, that matter's been dealt with through the debate, I think. In terms of the refuse, which I think was first raised by Councillor Nesterov, condition 8 of the recommendation requires adherence to the what's called the bin management waste and recycling plan on this one. I think members would typically refer to it as a refuse management plan. So that's been submitted, and that will be conditioned through condition 8. In terms of, again, the impact on the conservation area, which I think Councillor Gilbourne raised, the condition 9 requires essentially the remedial work and the repair work to, in particular, the balcony and the other aspects at the front elevation to be undertaken before the use commences. So that ensures that essentially the deterioration of the property is halted and it's brought back into essentially the level that it should be from the property that it obviously clearly is in terms of its quality. I think a couple of members raised issues about the parking, concerns in relation to that, and the parking survey that was undertaken. The parking survey was requested by our highways colleagues. They also essentially directed the methodology of that parking survey to, as you can see in the report, the Lambeth methodology. So highways were happy with the methodology of the survey and indeed the outcome of the survey. So they don't raise any objections in relation to parking, and that was all I had on my list.
Thank you very much. Chief Planning Officer, Mr. Harris.
Chair, I just want to pick up Councillor Joy's question. And Peter, I don't know whether it's you or Sam would come back on it. What is the lawful use of the property? What is its current use? And if members refuse it, what are the enforcement implications?
Thank you very much, Dave. So the application site has previously been subject to a lawful development certificate for the granting of a 6-bedroom HMO. However, this has not been implemented, meaning that since the imposition of the Article 4, that permission has effectively lapsed. So as of current, the property remains as a vacant dwelling house. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify on that question of the balconies then, is it there, Peter Hockney, in the recommendations at the moment, or do we need a new condition to get the balconies up to scratch?
The remedial work for the balconies is condition 9 on the recommendation.
Thanks very much. I hadn't got down that far. Thank you. Right. Yes, Mr. Harris.
Chair, on that, Mr. Hockney, as always, is absolutely right in relation to condition 9. I think Councillor Galvin's point was about storage on the balcony, wasn't it, in terms of bikes and clothing and stuff like that. So if members are minded to approve the application in accordance with the recommendation, we can look at that condition, whether we can expand it regarding storage. Yeah, okay. Mr. Hockney suggesting an additional condition rather than amending that one.
Yes, Councillor Peake. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm glad Councillor Galvin said what he said. I think being conservative about conservation areas is actually very important. My sister-in-law, she lives in the Wharf next to Rochester Station. There is one person only that's starting to use their balcony like a tipping ground, and it has such a damning effect. So I'm glad to hear that that's going to be there. Sorry, I missed it. How many bathrooms is there going to be in this property? That's the first question, please.
So all the bedrooms are served via an ensuite, and then there's a WC within the basement proposed as well.
Okay.
So there's seven bathrooms within their ensuite bathrooms though.
Okay.
And then you've got a WC in the basement.
Yeah, that's quite impressive, especially compared to the HMO I used to live in, where there was 5 people fighting over one bathroom when you're trying to get ready for work, and it caused arguments. I am torn with this because I think the interior of it's actually quite impressive. I think what they've actually set out is actually encouraging. I do have a concern about the parking, though. That's the only possible, I think, planning reason for turning it down, because we've had this before, haven't we? You cannot vote against something just because you don't like it. It's got to be a specific planning consideration. So my next question is, when they undertook their survey, was it on one occasion or not, and when was it? And the reason why I asked this, so bear with me. I have friends who live in Hastings, opposite a park. Last time I went there, I had to stand in the road, put my hand out and stop somebody parking outside their house so that we could park. It got verbal. And there was aggression because it's a hot day and all of a sudden there's not anywhere to park. If a survey was done on that day, the impression would be really bad. I have been there many times over the years, and that's the only time it's happened and been an issue. And it's literally opposite a park. So I think, when and how often you take a survey could make a difference.
Thank you, Councillor. So the Lambeth methodology, which is what our highways team generally employ for these types of applications, requires the surveys to be taken between 12:30 and 5:30. This one in particular was taken at 1 o'clock on 2 different occasions during the week. So it was twice, in answer to your question.
Sorry, thank you for that. The reason why I asked is because there's a lot of difference between a hot sunny day and other normal British weather days. So thank you.
Any other member? Just one more question to. Oh, sorry, Councillor Barrett. Sorry.
I was just wondering, what are the existing parking regulations on the opposite side to the residences? So the side where the park is, I believe that's all pretty well unrestricted, and you do get people sort of leaving cars there for quite a long period of time that may live quite some distance away from the area, which would make a problem for the new residents moving in. I don't know whether that is the case, but it used to be like that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Just having a look on Google Maps, there does appear to be restrictions on the road.
There are restrictions.
That's right. That you don't think there are? Oh, apologies, there aren't. It's unrestricted. Apologies, Councillor.
Does that help, Councillor Barrett?
Possibly, yeah.
Councillor Nang, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to raise a concern regarding the Medway losing an existing care home, which has been lost to the building of HMO. What I would like to find from the council, have the council tried to find out that care home will never or can never be reinstated in future, because it's a community facility. So have the council or the planning committee tried to find out that there wouldn't be any chance for that care home being reinstated in future?
Thank you, Councillor Nang. Chief Planning Officer.
Councillor Nang, With the greatest respect, that's the next application, which is, but what we will do is we will remember your question. So in the next application in our presentation, we'll cover that, if that's okay. Yeah, but this property is a single family accommodation at the moment, and it's proposed to be an HMO. The adjacent one, which is the next application, is the one that was a care home. But Sam's noted your question, and we'll cover it in that presentation, if that's okay. Thank you.
I haven't seen over all this equipment any other member at the moment. So, I mean, my only question was one or two members have raised the next application. As far as I know, with one eye on the Chief Planning Officer and one eye on the Legal Officer, we're determining this application on its own merits. Yeah, thanks very much. Well, it's now open to members. Can I see all those in favour of the application, please?
We need to be.
I'm so sorry. You'd think I'd remember that part. Over to the Vice Chair. Thank you very much.
Easy moment.
The committee recommends the approval of the application with conditions 1 to 9.
And the balcony?
Chief Planning Officer.
Vice Chair, are you moving the additional condition that Councillor Kelvin
Yes,
talked
I am. And the additional condition that the balcony cannot be used for storage or drying your washing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Is that seconded, please? Seconded, Councillor Peake. Can I see all those in favour of the application, please?
That's 9, Chair.
Can I ask all those against, please?
That's 4, Chair. No, that can't be.
The applicant.
We've got one less. Sorry.
Oh.
Did I not count it? Sorry, that's 5.
Okay, thank you very much. That application is carried then. Thank you very much. We now move on, I think, to Mr. Pilbeam, Sam Pilbeam, presenting the next application, agenda item 6, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just skip. This application seeks planning permission for the conversion of a vacant C2 care home into a sui generis 7-bedroom, 7-person HMO. There are no proposed external alterations sought within the context of this application. Again, familiar with the application site, with the previously discussed application just located here to the south, forming the other half of the semi-detached pair, and likewise falling within the threshold of the existing conservation, Gillingham Park conservation area. The immediate location, as we discussed previously, you see a mix of detached and semi-detached properties within these relatively generous plots and physically separated from one another via linked detached garages and insets from the boundary and such the like too. Similar to the previous application that members just discussed, a parking survey was conducted against this site too, due to the site sitting outside the threshold of a car parking management zone, finding the existing parking stress at that 70%, again, reflective of the previous application, and therefore, given these results following the Lambeth methodology, it's not considered the proposal would result in harm to the existing parking within the street. Dropping into the street scene, the image on the right-hand side shows the application property, which you would have seen in the previous application, noting the physical separation between the two properties here, and then the image on the left, just looking slightly further down the street scene, where you could note some off-street parking too. And these two images just show the previously discussed application on the left-hand side, as well as that existing C2 care home, which is currently in operation. In terms of the floor plans, the property again is large, spanning multiple floors, as of current having 6 rooms on the from the first floor to the loft, with 2 bedrooms located within the loft, and then you've got the supporting space on that ground floor. Additionally, as part of the submission, the applicant has submitted a supporting statement detailing why the continued use as C2 is problematic. And this very much relates to the internal layout, with them quoting there's issues regards to the arrangement across multiple floors, narrow corridors, absence of a lift access, and shallow narrowing staircases that serve the upper floors as well, which made referrals increasingly difficult to secure. This resulted in the application site falling well below operational capacity for its final years of use. And while efforts were made to explore various adaptation methods, these were ultimately unsuccessful. This was relating to the structural limitations of the property and the overall physical arrangement, just making it very difficult. As such, the care home ceased operation in 2023 and has been on the market since across various platforms. Since 2023, no credible offers have been given by potential people looking to purchase the property, with them often citing the physical layout and high adaptation costs and operational efficiencies as barriers to the purchase of the property. Against this backdrop as a whole, it's considered that the applicant has explored numerous ways to try and keep the care home in continuous use and ways to adapt the use for that care home. However, these ultimately have not been viable, and they have been robustly justified with evidence provided as well in their supporting statements. Therefore, the loss of the C2, whilst regrettable, is considered acceptable in this instance. Notwithstanding, and moving on to the proposed floor plans, you have single ensuite bedroom on the ground floor, 4 bedrooms on the first floor, and additional 2 bedrooms in the loft. Of these 7 bedrooms, 3 of them are served by en-suites. That's the largest one on the ground floor, the largest one on the first floor, and the largest one on the loft, with the remaining 4 bedrooms sharing 2 bathrooms. And that one bath, you've got that bathroom located here. And then, one on the first floor and one within the loft. Supporting this, you have a 24 square metre dining area on the ground floor, and then an additional conservatory and kitchen as well, supporting the communal area, again taking a little bit of pressure off the dining room so it can be used for that recreational and leisure space, in addition to storage jotted throughout the property, including within the hallways, an office area that could potentially be used as utility room as well. As such, given the context of the property's larger room sizes, it is considered that the supporting communal area would be acceptable to ensure the property can be used and function well as a 7-bedroom HMO. Again, turning to density, much the same as the previous application. Within that 500 metre threshold, you have the same 33 HMOs, which represents a 1.3% margin of the total housing stock. The only difference in this case is we're not faced with the loss of a dwelling house, as the application site is currently a care home. So you have a non-residential use being converted into a sui generis HMO. Overall, as concluded on the previous application, it's not considered the proposal would result in a proliferation of HMOs within this area, nor is it considered the proposal would result in the erosion of the general residential character of Park Avenue as a whole. So therefore, the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sam. I'll now go to the ward member, Councillor Coombs. I think you're well familiar with the procedure now, and you'll get an amber light come up, giving you a few seconds warning of finishing speaking. Thanks very much. Ready? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So some of this may sound familiar, given that they are adjoining properties. We know that it's in a conservation area, it's opposite Gillingham Park, and the proposal is to change it from a care home to a 7-bed HMO. A previous application to change from a care home to an 8-person HMO was refused. Now, the applicant has submitted some evidence that it claims to show that there are difficulties in maintaining this as a care home. The submissions are full of inaccuracies. The proposal states that the care home ceased to exist in 2023. In fact, it was operational until March 2025 when it was put up for auction, and it has been vacant since it was bought at auction. So these are quite basic things to get wrong. So I do question how many other things are incorrect in the application. There's a claim that they've done extensive marketing and research to find out what the appetite is to keep this as a care home. Again, I do not believe that the current owners have done any of this. What they have is an email from the previous owners who were at the point of getting rid of it and where the numbers were coming down. So I do think that to change this from a care home to an HMO would be the wrong thing to do. In Medway, as we all know, there is a great difficulty in finding places for people who need additional care. There are some purpose-built, very large care homes, but I really believe that families should have the opportunity to choose smaller, more intimate, more homely places for their family members and loved ones to go into. There are comments about how the property was not suitable for disabled people who were living there and for children, but it's perfectly suitable for many other people who need care. For example, at number 15, there are adults who have mental health issues. The layout of the property, the provision of stairs would not be an issue if we were looking at a care home for other vulnerable adults in our community. So I really think that the loss of this as a care home to convert it to another HMO is the wrong way to go. I will come back to the parking survey. I know it's been mentioned by officers that the Lambeth survey has been recognised by Highways and approved by Highways, but we can't have a computer says no attitude here. We've got to be flexible. We've got to look at the unique characteristics of each area. And to do a survey at 5 a.m. in the morning when the busy times are in the middle of the day when the park is really popular means that this survey really is meaningless in this context. We have to be more flexible and we have to look at the individual circumstances of each application. And by just saying the Lambeth survey is what we use, we're not looking at the unique circumstances of each application. It's really important that we take into account where this is and the road use around this area. There is no management plan for this property. There is no named contact mentioned for this property. It's very different from a care home, which is there, where there are staff on site. If there are any issues, then residents are easily able to contact the staff to talk to what their issues might be and to resolve them. If we've got operators who are not the best landlords necessarily, where there is no, unlike the previous application, where there is no management plan attached to this one, where there has been a great deal of difficulty in getting factually accurate information from them, there are real concerns actually that the residents will face difficulties if any problems arrive in getting them resolved. We need to have a care home there. We need to have a care home there to accommodate the people of Medway, to give families choices of where their loved ones can go if they need that additional support, and to take this away and change it to another HMO where there's a huge proliferation of them in Medway, particularly in and around Gillingham, would be the wrong decision to take. Neighbours have parking issues anyway. This would add to the parking. They need to make sure that conditions are put in place if this does go ahead, that there's a management plan for number 11, that there's a name contact for the manager displayed on premises, that there is a condition removing permitted development rights for external storage, that there is a parking and travel plan there as well. My main thrust for this one, though, is we do not want to lose a care home. There's already a real shortage of good quality places for vulnerable adults, elderly, disabled, people with other issues in Medway, and we do not want this taken away. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coombs. Any member? I saw Councillor Gilbourne Councillor Galvin, Councillor Joy, Councillor Nestroff, Councillor Gilbourne.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Sam. I agree with the ward councillor. We don't really want to lose another care home in Medway, but at the same time, because it's in the private sector, it's down to personal choice. And if they can't see to fulfil what a care home can do well, and obviously make some money from it, then they'll look at alternatives. And so it's not surprising it's come to this, where they can see a better return for their investment to make it an HMO. And I won't repeat the comments I made for the last application, but they're the same. But I've just got a couple of questions. One is about the conservation area element and a link to parking. But if they wanted to, at some point, and I know it's not in this application, but knock down the front wall and put 5 parking spaces at the front, I assume that wouldn't be allowed because it's a conservation area, even though there's a property next door which seems to have done that, so there's no garden. And then the other one was about, there isn't a basement with this one, and there was with the other one, and I'm just surprised. And I don't know if you, Sam, know anything about whether there is a basement or it's been filled in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin.
Thank you, Chair. I can't really accept the argument that because this is a care home, it's always got to be a care home. I mean, if we stuck to that line, this property could remain vacant for years. Certainly, in the past, yes, most care homes were of these sort of properties. If you look in Maidstone Road, Chatham, for instance, where you've got houses of a similar Edwardian size, a lot of those have become care homes, but also they're slowly but surely closing. You know, they're not. You know, it's not easy to provide modern facilities in an Edwardian building, and it's sort of difficult to get your head around. But you know, I think there is an element of size of a business where if you haven't got a sufficient volume of patients or people to care for, but you've still got all the overheads, it will become, the business will be marginal. And also, anecdotally, I think most of the CQC inspections where they've had an unfavourable report have tended to be for smaller, older type of properties. I still think that whilst a lot of people are unhappy about HMOs, there is a significant demand for them. People would not be buying these properties and going through the expenses of converting it if there was not a demand. There is a demand, a very heavy demand, and that reason is there are so many young people who just cannot afford to get on the housing market. So these type of properties are a very useful stepping stone for a first home for somebody after leaving their childhood home. And they can't at that stage afford to rent a flat, but a HMO room is a much more economic proposition. And certainly if anybody is wanting to save to get a mortgage on a deposit on a property, you would tend to not want to spend too much of your income for your present premises. So, like the last one, though, I would, because it's the balconies the same, I'd like, if possible, that condition would be for this, or it'd be unfair if you didn't. Again, on planning grounds, I can't see any reason why we should turn this down. The parking argument from the survey has been largely addressed. And what worries me, if we did turn this down on the grounds that we'd like it to remain a care home, there's no guarantee that somebody else would be wanting to step in the foreseeable future to take over that property for that purpose. It's sad that the property next door has been allowed to deteriorate in such a way. And I think this property number 11 would happen to it if it just sat there waiting for somebody to come along. It would just fall into disrepair, and any idea of keeping the conservation area looking nice and indeed trying to improve the conservation area and get it the vista back to what it was a few years ago will be out the window. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Galvin. Councillor Joy, I've got, then Councillor Nestorov.
Thank you. Just some questions to the officers on this one. I know with the last one, we couldn't consider potentially that this application was coming as well, but we've now approved the previous application. So can we consider the previous application that's now been approved when considering this one? Because the concerns which were raised on the original application, the first application, was that if you approve both of these, you're increasing the density in a small area for the area with HMOs, and that would be a concern and a concern for other residents around the area, and also with any parking when you're at your busier periods. I just wanted to ask that question because if the answer is because it's not been built as a HMO yet on the other one, no, we can't consider that one on that. The other thing is that when looking at it, I was under the impression that the requirements that when you're having a HMO is towards each of them having a separate bathroom area. I'm not 100% sure if that's been adopted by Medway. I've not managed to find anything on that, so I just wanted confirmation on that. I know it points out there's 4 bedrooms without a separate an ensuite bathroom, and it mentions there's 2 bathrooms, but when you actually look at the layout, the bathroom on the top floor is only going to be potentially used by the bedroom next to it. So on that first floor, you've got 3 bedrooms sharing a bathroom. And the concern is that with that many, with 3 people sharing a bathroom, is it meeting required standards? Thank you.
Yeah, I do think probably we need to pause there for the officer to come back, particularly in relation to the previous property that we've approved. Yeah, so switch your mic off, Councillor Galvin. Yes, thanks very much. Please, thank you very much. Mr. Hockney, is it? Sorry, Mr. Pilbeam, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the question as well. Just to clarify, in terms of our policy, strictly talking in terms of our policy, we require that the bedrooms meet the technical housing standards, which is set out in the MPPG, and this strictly relates to the internal sizes of the bedrooms itself and ensuring that each room receives sufficient degrees of light and outlook. I do understand that a lot of the proposals that come to members do have en-suites. In this case, it's considered that the 3 bedrooms with the en-suites and the 2 supporting bathrooms is sufficient to ensure that the property can function as a 7-bedroom HMO throughout its lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Chair, there were some other questions. I don't know whether, Pete, you want to address them, or Sam. So I've got the other questions. If I can take Councillor Gilbourne's questions as well, if that's okay. So we've got, can they knock down the front wall? Is there a basement? And can we consider the previous approval, either one, the decision just made?
Yeah, so in terms of the previous application, I think there's an argument both ways, I think, in terms of it is a consent, but I think as you alluded to, it's not currently in use, and there would be no guarantee that it would be in use. However, I think in terms of the overall percentage, which Mr. Pilbeam went over in both presentations, it's still at the very low end of what we would typically allow. Most members, I'm sure, would have read the recent appeal decision at 3 Kingswood Road, where the inspector considered that a 9% level of HMOs in the street was at a level that was probably on the cusp, I think, at that stage. And then he considered the other uses that were non-family, which tipped it beyond what he deemed as an unacceptable threshold and the purpose of introducing the HMOs. I think the Article 4's to prevent the HMOs, sorry. With this site and the surroundings, we're not close to that level. So I think in terms of the clustering, the over proliferation of HMOs and the loss of family houses, I think generally in terms of the numbers, we wouldn't be at that threshold. And secondly, obviously with this one, it's not currently a family house. So one of the main reasons for introducing the Article 4, which prevents the loss of family housing to up to 6-bedroom HMOs, is to prevent that slide of loss of family properties. And obviously this application isn't for the loss of a family property. So I think for those 2 reasons, the level that we're looking at here is acceptable. In terms of the demolition of the front wall, I think looking at the plans, the photograph, I think in front of you, sorry, it probably would require permission because of its height and the fact that it's within a conservation area before they could demolish that. So that would be protected by that legislation. And basement, I'm not aware. Sam, do you know that? Basement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Strictly speaking, I haven't been in this property. I've been in the adjacent, the one we previously discussed. So I'm unaware if this one is served by a basement. But looking at the floor plans, as we were speaking, I was struggling to locate where the entrance to the basement could potentially be. This appears as a cupboard here. So my answer to that is it's unlikely that this one has a basement, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to Councillor Nesterov now, please? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and thank you for the report, the presentation. Well, Councillor Joe actually asked my questions. I was going to ask about the density, because now we have another approved HMO right next door. So the density map is already inaccurate. And the second question was about the bathrooms. For me, it seems only 2 bathrooms on floor 1, and the roof is definitely not enough. But we got that question answer. I want to emphasize on Councillor Coombs' point about the care home and about the inaccuracy of the need. When I was mayor of Medway in 24-25, I was invited to open 2 new care homes. So these companies that are doing this for a living, they did a survey, they saw that there is need, and they opened it. So obviously there is a need for care homes in Medway. We have a massive aging population that needs care. As well, the council itself, we are building a new care home. I'm sure we did our due diligence and found out that there is need for that. So yeah, I would say that's inaccurate, but like it was pointed out, it's a business decision for the business to either keep it or not. So I guess I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nestor. I'm going to go Councillor Hubbard, Councillor Nang.
So my first comment again is, I'm not going to make a comment again about the HMO density diagram. It doesn't show other properties which are like care homes and such like in the area. So it gives a false impression. Right, so the common communal areas on this proposal are quite extensive and quite generous. And of course, the other thing, though there are only 2 bathrooms, there are 2 additional WCs on the ground floor as well. So that should be noted. I'm not quite sure about these additional storerooms on the left-hand side on the ground floor, what they are, what they could be used for. And when you're talking about balconies, as Councillor Galvin has mentioned about a condition, there are 2 balconies here, one at the front and one at the back. Would that condition, suggested condition, be for both or just the front? Thank you.
Do we want to say anything at this stage in answer to Councillor Hubbard's points?
Chair, just in relation to the balcony, maybe it's a question for Councillor Galvin. From my perspective and the public impression of it, it's the front balcony which gives the greatest concern there, which we wouldn't want the storage. So unless I'm, yeah, Councillor Galvin's nodding.
Thank you. Councillor Nang, thank you for waiting patiently.
Thank you, Chair. Now, in terms of planning, there might be no reason to refuse this application. But with reasons given for the conversion from care home to HMO, I did like to raise some concerns regarding most of these our HMOs don't have or do not meet the needs of disabled or mobility impaired people. So I would like the officers to clear how this proposal meets the need of disabled or mobility impaired residents, because we've talking about HMO, and I've not seen any of them taking into consideration the needs of disabled people or mobility impaired residents. Thank you.
Councillor Peake.
Thank you, Chair. I too am very concerned about the loss of care homes. Over 5 years ago, I worked in a care home for 5 years. But before I make my next point, can I just check, because I'm not sure if I heard correctly, did you say that the building had considerable issues when it needed a lot of repair, upkeep? They had deteriorated significantly and had gone on the market to be sold as a care home. Is that correct?
Thank you very much, councillors. So the issue with the building itself is more so to do with the structural limitations of the existing built form in terms of getting additional sort of lifts in there to access the numerous floors, and how sort of in terms of the engineering, how that would impact the existing building and the viability of that. So I'm not inferring that the existing building as of current is unstable. It's just that the additional works required to ensure that the building could be used for a care home as prolonged would potentially cause conflicts.
Can you clarify when it stopped being used as a care home, please?
It stopped being, according to the submitted document, it stopped being used in 2023. And it's been advertised.
And then it was put up to be sold as a care home. Is that correct?
It's been put up to be sold since it's been marketed since 2023 as well across various platforms. Let me just quickly. Apologies, Councillor. It's been, this is quoting the supporting statement, paragraph 4, marketing. Marketing has included listings across care sector platforms, property bulletins, and direct approaches to register provided and housing associations in Medway, of which no credible interest has been found, with them often quoting the high adaptation costs and the inefficiencies of the internal layout being the primary drivers for them not wanting to undertake the property as a care home for continued use.
Thank you. So that's the part I was trying to get to. I've bemoaned the loss of a care home, but a reality check. So the care home, I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just telling my experience. The care home I worked in deteriorated in those 5 years. So to give you one example, water from the wet room going into the kitchen, not dealt with. Cupboards that don't open, run by industrial machines, because these are people with personal care, so they clean the clothes. They would not spend money on it, and this is interior stuff. They had a lift that quite often broke down. These companies that register themselves as charities, they are businesses. They are in the care industry. They are businesses. I think it's highly unlikely that you would ever get somebody that would want to spend that amount of money to then turn it into a care home. So the idea of leaving it and hoping for the best, I think that's a fool errand, unfortunately. And is there guidance, by the way, is there guidance about how long you should allow a building to be sold in its previous usage? Is there any kind of guidance about how long you should try and how many times and whatever?
Well, I'm going to go over to Chief Planning Officer for these. Thanks.
Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things, because Councillor Coombs, as a ward councillor, has challenged when it closed as a care home. So we've got the the local information on that against what the applicants have said. So there's a question there. However, I think in terms of the principle of the conversion from a care home to an HMO, the key issue there, which Sam was trying to explain, if you look at the existing floor plans, it's a very small HMO. Absolutely, sorry, a very small care home. Absolutely, we need care homes, and the policy there is protecting care homes. But this is a small care home, and if you look at that internal layout that Sam showed, in terms of providing continued care for people as they maybe deteriorate and get older, like myself, there's no lifts in here. The corridors are very narrow, and I think it's with the increasingly modern standards and requirements of care homes moving forwards, where, as Councillor Nang says, you want that permanent accessibility as you deteriorate in physicality. This property doesn't lend itself to those works from a viable point of view, and that's where Sam's got to in the application. Understanding exactly the point that Councillor Coombs has said, that there may be some question marks as to when it closed, but moving forward, because of those physical constraints and a limited size of it, it is unlikely to be a care home in terms of meeting modern standards going forward. I'm trying to think what your question was, Councillor Peake.
Wondering if there was any guidance that we, good practice guidance rather than legal, that it is beholden on us to encourage the company that owns it to advertise as a care home for a certain period to see if we get any takers or not.
Pete's, I'm laughing, Councillor Peake, sorry, not at your question. Pete's reminding me what the question was, because my memory after a day at a public inquiry is going. From a planning point of view, when we're looking, there are some times where we're looking at closure of commercial things, and we require there to be a reasonable time period for marketing to demonstrate that it's not going to be taken up by someone. And depending on the use, that could be 6 months, it could be a year. I think I then go back to the point I was saying, that we're looking then at the size of this building and its constraints within it, in terms of there are no current lifts, the corridors are narrow, it's a small property. Is it likely to meet modern standards going forward? And the conclusion we've come to is not.
Right, I haven't seen any other member at the moment. I think there's an outstanding question from Councillor Anang. Am I not mistaken? Or has that been addressed? Chief Planning.
Sorry, Chair. I think I did try to cover Councillor Nang's point, but not very well. So my apologies, Councillor Nang. He was asking about disability and that for people with mobility, and I think I was covering that in terms of the inadequacy of the existing care home for mobility moving forward. In relation to HMOs. Will the property be laid out to cater for people with some mobility issues? I think the answer is the ground floor bedroom at the front would probably be okay, but again, because there are no lifts, the upper floors some people would have to have some to be mobile to get up those stairs and get to those upper floor units.
Okay. Any other member? I'll remember this time. It's Vice Chair, Councillor Bowen. Thank you.
And thank you. And the noting the change to condition 2, also similar, no storage or washing on balconies.
Is that seconded? All those in favour, please show.
That's 9, Chair.
All those against?
That's 5, Chair.
Were there any other? I think that completes the committee. There are no abstentions, were there? No. Thank you very much. Okay. I was just wondering if it would be convenient to take a break. Yeah, if we do it now, can I limit it to 5 minutes? And anybody who's not back in 5 minutes, you'll miss the presentation, so you'll miss the chance to vote. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back to the Planning Committee, 3rd of June 2026. It's agenda item 7, I think. Again, it's Sam Pilbeam to present. Beg your pardon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. This application seeks planning permission for the construction of a single-storey rear extension, installation of a rear flat roof dormer, and conversion of the property from a C3 dwelling house into a Class C4 6-bedroom, 6-person HMO. The application site is again located within the urban area of Gillingham, sited centrally along Ingram Road, with Saxon Way Primary School located to the west. In terms of the more immediate character of the area is comprised of rows of terrace properties. These are within relatively narrow but proportionally deep plots that have some inset away from the footpath to the fronts as well. And you can see on the bottom right-hand corner here, there is a larger detached property. These properties are generally 2-storey and do support relatively deep rear gardens, albeit they are narrow by virtue of the plotting. Just whilst we've got this area on too, the application site does fall outside of a car parking management zone. Therefore, a parking survey has again been submitted against the Lambeth methodology, as members discussed in the previous applications, which found that there was sufficient parking stress on the street to accommodate for a small HMO in this instance. Dropping into the street, the application's property is this one on the right-hand side, which you can see located where my cursor is. By virtue of its corner plot location, it is relatively wider than the adjoining properties. Broadly speaking, it appears about double the width of those that you can see following the street down. And behind this row of hedges here, there is a small light well which serves a basement, and it's accessed off the side. And these views just show the additional street scene looking down towards the south and that larger dwelling house that's opposite the property. In terms of the existing elevations, I'll particularly draw members' attention to the rear, which is where the majority of the construction is focused. There's no demolitions in this case, just at single story and within the roof. Internally, the property as existing is a generously sized 3-bedroom household, with the 3 bedrooms being located on the first floor, and then you've got the additional kitchen, dining, and living spaces on the ground floor, and that supporting basement on the, within the basement. The next 2 slides have just been included to illustrate to members what the applicant has previously secured via their permitted development rights. So the first of which includes a rear dormer and a 3-metre deep rear extension. Just for additional context as well, this permission did grant the applicant a conversion from a C3 to C4. However, since they haven't implemented that permission, the property is, as of current, a dwelling house and not used as a Class C4. And then a further larger homes was approved, whereby a 6-metre deep rear extension was granted. The proposed elevations are effectively amalgamation of both of these applications, including the full-width dormer and that 6-metre deep rear extension, as well as a roof light to the front. And whilst it is understood this is on the larger side of what the applicant can do within their permitted development rights, it is considered to be commensurate with the residential scale and nature of the surrounding properties, in particular given that corner plot location and width. As you can see, there is a separation distance between the flank of the rear extension and adjoining plot, just to ensure there's no adverse impacts in terms of amenities there. And then internally, the property would comprise of 2 two ensuite bedrooms on the ground floor, 3 ensuite bedrooms on the first floor, and an additional ensuite bedroom within the loft. All of the bedrooms would meet the MPPG's technical standards and likewise provide each of the rooms with sufficient degrees of light and outlook. In advance to the bedrooms, there is also a 32 metre squared living dining room within that rear extension and a further 14 metre squared living room to the front, as well as additional utility rooms within the ground floor and the basement, which can be used for storage as well. Therefore, it is considered that this level of communal space would support the function of the property as a 6-bedroom HMO. Just turn into the block plan, in particular looking at the retained garden space relative to the proposed extension. Much of the garden is retained, as well as the applicant also providing details of where cycle and refuse storage can be located within the property. And finally, in terms of HMO density, there is, within a 500-metre radius of the site, there are 28 HMOs, which represents 1.2% of the total housing stock within the area. As members can also see from the map, there's very limited HMOs along Ingram Road and within the neighbouring streets within its surroundings. Therefore, it's not considered the proposal would represent an over-proliferation of HMOs within this area, nor is it considered to erode the character or the residential character of the area as a whole. As such, the proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions contained within the officer's report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any member? Councillor Hubbard?
Yeah, it was really, obviously there was a lawful development certificate issued last year, nearly a year ago. So and obviously it wasn't acted upon, therefore it no longer applies. But I was just really thinking, if it was a planning application and the planning application had no longer applied, but a new planning application came exactly the same, sometimes there's some weight given to the fact it was a previous planning application. This isn't really a question for the Mr. Harris, is that should any weight be given to the fact that there was an approved development certificate for I think it's the near identical, if not identical, layout on this planning application? And if it was refused, would they have some kind of recourse, say, well, hey, last year you thought differently?
Officer want to take that, Mr. Hockney?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the weight given, because the Article 4 came into play prior to the implementation of what would have been permitted development, there is no longer a fallback position for that development. So in terms of the decision making on this application, it can't be given any weight in terms of a potential fallback position. However, and the reason that these C4 C4 HMOs are coming to committee is because, and I think this was what you're alluding to, Councillor Hubbard, is that there is potential compensation that applicants can apply for if the council refuses applications that would normally have been permitted development rights and are now only no longer permitted development because of the introduction of the Article 4. So there is that compensation element, which is a potential. However, what we're considering this application on is the planning merits of it, as Mr. Pilbeam's expanded throughout the presentation, is that to our mind, in terms of the policy backdrop, this is an acceptable location and scale for the HMO that's being proposed. So I hope that answers the questions.
Councillor Hubbard?
Yeah, so before it was a clean skin, basically. It was a fresh application, not one as was before. And I suppose as we're going along, that we won't have this retro looking at what's happened in the past. Yeah, thanks.
Right, I'm going to take Councillor Nestroff, Councillor Joy and Councillor Galvin in that order. Councillor Nestroff, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you for the presentation. I'm looking at the HMO density map and I want to ask how much sure we are that it's accurate, because it looks quite bare in terms of HMOs in that area. Yeah, that's my first question.
Want to take that now?
Thank you. I think in terms of the accuracy of the plans, these were the plans that members considered were the evidence for them to issue the Article 4s. So I would advise against questioning the validity of the plans, because that's the whole basis that we've made the decision on serving the Article 4s. So
my point is that I can't say for sure, but maybe 90% sure there are more HMOs in that area that they are present here. And do we investigate that? I mean, if you just go around the neighborhood and you see a house with like 5 doorbells, obviously it's an HMO. That's my point. It's not that I think there are less HMO, I think there are more HMO in the area.
I think in terms of the, sorry, Chair, is it okay? Yeah, sorry. In terms of the evidence that the consultants used, they obviously looked at the number of registered HMOs, but they also looked at what they considered to be hidden HMOs, and they used a number of techniques to find that out in terms of one of it was if there was changes in council tax, or if there was particularly changes on the electoral roll that they would use to essentially build the picture, so we had the as accurate a data as we possibly could to look at the numbers. And as I say, as far as we're aware, this is as accurate as we're going to get. And I think Mr. Pilbeam on his site visit would have looked at the immediate street to see what else was around, as indeed he did on the Park Avenue ones, and also spent a long time on the Kingswood Road appeal, getting the information for that, which we were successful in defending members' decision on that. Thank you.
And my last question is about how the converted house will look like. If you go up a couple of slides, on the loft, on the roof, there is an extension. Maybe one more. Sorry, one more. How is that gonna look like? Is it not gonna look a bit overbearing on top of everything else? The extension on top.
Thank you very much, councillors. So the dormer effectively falls within what the applicant could construct under their permitted development rights. And whilst there's not a fallback position insofar as the conversion of the property from a C3 to C4, the logic behind including the 2 previous slides were just to demonstrate the applicant's fallback position in terms of the proposed massing and scale of the development. So this here wouldn't exceed what the applicant could construct without the need for planning permission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nestroff. So we go to Councillor Joy next.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the property and the location, the Article 4 was brought in to not lose family dwellings in an area where they may be needed. Having a large family dwelling right next to a school and right around the corner from another school would say to me that there is a requirement for family dwellings in that area. And also, it mentions about the parking, and it brings in Gillingham 10 to 15 minutes away. It's very close to a school. Yes, it's next to a school. The concern would be, on a planning concern, would be the parking, and also a loss of a family dwelling in an area where lots of people want to be closer to schools, and we've got two schools within, well, one within pop out the back garden into the school, and the other one within a 2 or 3 minute walk, which would be very suitable for lots and lots of families, because we've got a standard primary school, and we've got a Catholic primary school around the corner. So that would open up to quite a lot of people in that area. And I'd be very, very concerned if we lost that to a HMO due to the location.
Chief Planning Officer.
Chair, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Joy, for that point. I just wanted to clarify one point, which is the Article 4 was brought in not to say that HMOs and loss of family accommodation was always unacceptable, but what it was to do is that these could happen without planning permission at this moment in time, with an Article 4 that then require planning permission, and then they should be assessed against the criteria set out in Policy H7 of the old but existing local plan, and an emerging policy T8 of the of the 2026 plan, and that's set out on page. That criteria is set out on page 52 of your report. So it's not the principle of we are looking to protect family accommodation, but through not creating that proliferation, which goes back to Councillor Nestrov's point. Is there that over proliferation in the area? And then the other points that you're saying, that criteria, I'll read it out. Sorry, do not adversely affect the character and amenity of the area. Do not contribute to an over provision of HMOs. Do not lead to the loss of suitable units for family accommodation, particularly in areas of high concentration of HMOs. Do not generate excessive parking demands. Provide a suitable level of amenity complying with national internal space standards. Make provision for waste and cycles. Do not adversely affect the health of residents, new and existing. So we've assessed it against that, and members, you're entitled to come to a different view, which you have done on other applications, but you need to assess it against that criteria. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Galvin.
Thank you, Chair. But, to me, this seems quite a good quality. Looking at the proposed plans, all the bedrooms have a ensuite. There's a very adequate, good size communal spaces, and it was also good to see that one of the smaller rooms has been designated as a study, which I think is a very good thing, because people of student age will studying at the local university or something would like that as a change from actually studying in your bedroom, which can, from memory, was always a bit of a lonely existence. So to me, this is sort of, particularly with every room living room having its own ensuite, I think that's the standard we should to aim for. It would be good if everyone had an ensuite, because it's obvious that the demand for this type of accommodation is not going to go away, and we're going to have to provide it. But it would be nice at the same time that that if all of them could be up to this standard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other member? Oh yes, Councillor Maritime, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point or question. In regards to floor space for a bedroom, now obviously, as has been pointed out, we've got a study here. Would that study, if it was a bedroom, be considered, or is it too small?
Thank you very much, Councillor. The study would be too small to be used or occupied as a bedroom.
And then follow-up question is, though there's a living room, and I think that's great, you've actually got rooms that are being used for communal space. In theory, could they convert that living room into a bedroom if they so wished in future, and would they have to come back about that?
If we're talking in terms of floor space and outlook, in theory, yes, that room could be converted into an additional room, making it a 7-bedroom HMO, and this would be a change of use requiring a new application for such use.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Martin. I don't see any other member, so Vice Chair, Councillor Bowen.
The committee recommends the approval of the application subject to conditions 1 to 7.
Is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor. All those in favour?
That's 10, Chair.
Anyone against?
Oh, you're not. Okay. That's 2, Chair.
Abstentions?
Okay. I missed that last bit. Okay.
Should we treat that as a declaration then?
I think so.
Okay, well, thank you very much. The application is determined. We move on to agenda item 8, I think, which is the senior planner, Aaron Nichols. And thank you, Mr. Pilbeam, for your 3 introductions. Mr. Nichols.
Good evening, members, and good evening, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the conversion of an existing C3 house to a C4 6-bed, 6-person HMO, along with the erection of a pitched roof dormer on the rear elevation and 2 roof lights on the front elevation, along with the conversion of a outbuilding into a shared home working scheme. The application site is located within the urban area of Gillingham. The site location plan here is outlined in red. To the east, you have Gillingham Park. Obviously, Gillingham High Street is to the north, and to the west, you have Medway Hospital. Again, here is just for more location. The site location outlined in red on Canterbury Street. It is opposite. You've got kind of small parades of shops, and then you have a school further down the road. In regards to the surrounding built form, it is primarily 2-storey dwellings with some dormer style rear extensions alongside kind of a single and 2-storey extensions as well. And the application, the properties surrounding the application predominantly in the form of single household occupancy. Here we can see the application property. It is the one in the kind of off-brown grey colour with the blue door. And here is kind of an aerial view with the application site outlined in red. As noted, there is the kind of single-storey element to the rear as well. The existing elevations and sections for the application. So it's currently a 4-bedroom property. The application was subject to a previous lawful development certificate for a 6-bed, 6-person HMO, which, although was granted, was not implemented as a result of the Article 4 direction. A subsequent application was made to build an 8-bed HMO, but this was withdrawn by the applicant after being advised it would not be deemed acceptable. These are the floor plans for the LDC. So the proposed elevations for the scheme, there's provision of 2 dormers on the front elevation and a small pitched roof dormer in the rear. Alongside what's marked as the shed in the rear is that single-storey element, which is proposed to be a home working suite. In regards to the proposed floor plans, so here's a section of the scheme. In regards to the proposed floor plans, it's considered that all of the bedrooms would be served by adequate degree of natural light and afford a suitable outlook, and would be served by an ensuite. The remaining communal space would comprise a 14.5 kitchen and an 8.9 square metre communal living room, both on the ground floor, which would be shared among the 6 occupants. And there is also the co-working space labelled as a shed plan here. The kitchen area is considered suitable for general functional space for cooking and washing of clothes, while the living room is considered suitable of a suitable size for the proposed number of residents. Here we can see the proposed cycle storage plan and bin storage, and conditions are included for the submission of further details in relation to cycle storage and a refuse strategy. And here's the HMO density map, which shows HMOs in the surrounding area within the 500-metre radius. And it is considered that proposed HMO would provide a good level of occupiers amenity and would meet the requirements of the adopted Reg 22 local plan, and as such is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Any member? Councillor Peake, I see.
Thank you, Chair. I've been finding these aerial photographs quite interesting because, you know, overall areas can get a reputation of being full of HMOs. And obviously this radius is a guide that you're told to use. What is the guidance area again? Because to me it looks like 2 to 3 blocks worth of properties.
Apologies, it's 500 square metres, Councillor.
Whatever that means. Okay, thank you. Now, on this occasion, that looks much more dense than the other ones. That is just a visual impression. So, you know, there's roads there looks quite a number of HMOs already. So,
in regards to the number of HMOs in the surrounding area, there are 62 HMOs using the map that's on screen. Although it is considered there is a cluster further up the road in Canterbury Street. In this location, on this element, there are no other HMOs in this area of Canterbury Street. Obviously, it is quite a long street, but in this area, it's not considered that there is a cluster of HMOs.
So now we get to the nub of it. This is why I'm confused, because I was looking at this area thinking that is the area that you've got to consider, but you've just said, sorry, it's not a criticism, it's my ability to understand. You're now saying, despite that, where this particular application is, it's not considered to have too many HMOs. Just see my dilemma? You're saying that, but when I look at that picture, it implies otherwise.
Yep, thank you. So, yeah, obviously we do look at the number of HMOs in the direct area. I've been to the site. There are a few on the map. Obviously, the map provides a red line plan which shows you the location of the units. But when we're looking at individual units, it looked like I set out my report earlier, we look at the surrounding uses of the properties and whether it would create a cluster in that location. As we discussed earlier, on the previous applications, we were looking at clustering of numbers. As you can see on this application, the only HMO that's located kind of directly close to it is on the other side of the road, which is this one here. But apart from that, there are no others in this kind of element of Canterbury Street.
Well, what about the red clustering just along? Looks like about 6, looks almost like a flower.
Mr. Nicholson.
Yep, so as there are 6 there, as you've highlighted, obviously this is subject further down the road from that, so it's not in that direct cluster. So when it comes to clustering, we look at the units in the surrounding location. Canterbury Street is a very long road, and as you can see from the surrounding streets, there are HMOs kind of further up the road and further down. But when we're looking at individual applications, we look at, from a clustering point of view, we look at those in the surrounding location.
All right, thank you for that. I'm aware that it's a very long road, but I won't claim to know the area that well. So I'd be curious to hear what other members think, because when I look at that, my impression is there is a considerable amount of HMOs nearby. So,
Yeah, sorry, Development Services Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think just to sort of try and put your mind at ease a bit, Councillor Peake, I think in terms of the 6 that are there in that cluster, looking at the position of the application site, on both sides of Canterbury Road, there's probably between 40 and 50 houses between the application site and where that cluster is. So in terms of, I think because of the size of the red blobs on the plan being bigger than a house, it does look like a considerable number in relation to the number of houses. But if those points were the size of a dwelling, then I think you'd see that there are a greater number of dwellings between the application site and the clustering. So yeah, if we go to the aerial photograph for the site. Yeah, so you can see in terms of the sheer number of individual properties essentially on that stretch of Canterbury Road, there's a considerable number in that short stretch because of the density of typical terraced housing.
Sorry, Chair, to hog this. Just trying to pin this down. I accept what you're saying. Yeah, it did visually look bad. On an assumption, and it is an assumption, that when you've got HMOs, you may have more car usage. Obviously, therefore, those distances of 50 houses, it's not the same thing as somebody walking. That's nothing in a car. I do know with this area, there's already considerable traffic related issues. And I am wondering out aloud whether, because I'm always looking, whether there really is a planning consideration for turning something down or not. So can you expand on this assessment they made about car usage and whether there's potential for overcrowding in terms of parking and traffic, please?
Thank you, Councillor. So in regards to parking, the area is subject to parking restrictions, and condition 7 is included for the applicants to submit a parking management plan which will restrict the applicants from applying for parking permits.
Can't hear that, Councillor Peake.
Sorry, volume of traffic? Too many cars?
For this application, condition 7 would restrict them from having parking permits. So
I meant moving cars, using those roads to get from A to B.
I think in terms of the traffic generation of a property as an HMO beyond a single family dwelling, I think we would struggle to argue that the traffic generation would be of such a level that it would make Canterbury Street unusable in terms of part of the highway network, purely because of the, as I say, the level of occupants and, as Mr. Nichols has said, the fact that the parking management plan would prevent them from being able to park a car and therefore unlikely to travel in terms of movements to and from the site.
Okay, thank you for that. I accept what you're saying. I'm just aware of that whenever I've gone campaigning around there, whatever, not just some parking point of view, but all those roads, they are a nightmare to drive down because of the volume of moving traffic. Just in case Mr. Pilbeam wonders what I was asking, that is what I'm trying to get to. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Councillor Peake. I haven't seen any other member. Oh, Councillor Galvin.
Yes, I've just got a question. In the report, it says that bedroom 3 is below the NPPP guidelines. How much below is it, please?
That's in regards to the existing as a 4-bedroom house. So in its current use, it measures at just over 6 square metres, but obviously all of the proposed bedrooms meet the minimum requirements.
Councillor Nesterov.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and thank you for the report. Yes, I wanted to say exactly that, but in the opposite meaning. I'm actually very pleased to see that the size of the room grows when it turns into HMO. Because when you see the existing plan, one room is 6 square meter, the other one is 7 square meter, which for me is tiny. But they're turning into 10, 11, 12 square meter rooms, which I'm very pleased to see. In terms of density, again, I wanted to ask here, and probably that's a question for another time or explanation offline, but what would be the density in an area that would be considered too much? How much percentage of the area needs to be HMO so it would be considered too much?
Well, Mr. Hockney mentioned a recent appeal decision. I don't know whether the Service Manager Development Service has got anything to say further than that.
That's correct, Chair. I think at the moment we haven't got a percentage threshold within the emerging policy because we didn't feel that it was correct or appropriate to have a bar, because in some cases, I think as members have said tonight and at previous committees, it's not just the level of HMOs, there's the other non-residential uses in the area. So we decided against a strict threshold, but we are looking at a general ballpark figure of 10%. Now, on the Kingswood Road appeal that we were successful in defending, through the discussion that members had at committee, the level of HMOs was 9% in that stretch, but there were additional other non-residential uses such as hostels and things like that in the area, which tipped it above the 10%, and the inspector seemed to accept that as a sort of threshold. And what we will be looking at is additional appeal decisions as they come through, so that we have a library of essentially appeal decisions and then obviously have a training session with members of planning committee, and all members are welcome to that, so that we can build on the appeal decisions and work out the best approach on each individual HMO applications going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Shall we go to the Vice Chair, Councillor Bowen?
The committee recommends the approval of the application subject to conditions 1 to 7.
Is that seconded? Can I see those in favour, please?
That's 13, Chair.
Any against?
That's 1, Chair.
Thank you. That planning application is approved. We therefore now go to agenda item 9, I think, if I'm up with it. So this is, yes, Chair.
Chair, if I can just say this while we're waiting for the officers to switch chairs. I'm picking up a point that Councillor Joy was making, which is a really good one, where that question of in terms of, are we seeing a value to the Article 4 directions? And I'm definitely seeing that, because properties like this one here, that you're looking at from the last application, could have been converted to an HMO with very little internal alterations, without requiring planning permission. As a result of the Article 4 direction, we can assess them against policy, and we can say to them, you've got to provide, as Councillor Nestroff has said, you've got to provide those room standards, those room sizes. You've got to provide those additional communal areas. So I'm actually seeing, in a relatively short time, a higher quality of accommodation being provided through the HMOs.
Thank you very much, Chief Planning Officer. And with that, we'll go to Steffi Thiedem, Senior Planner, to present agenda item 9, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to draw your attention to the supplementary agenda. The Sam's Bird fee has now been paid and has now overcome the second reason for refusal for this application. The proposal for this application is for the change of use for a C3 dwelling house to a C4 HMO with a single-storey rear extension, an L-shaped dormer and 2 roof lights to the front. This plan shows the application site as shown in red. The application has been brought forward to committee today due to its location covered by the Article 4 direction. This site shows in the immediate context of the site with Medway Hospital to the south, Windmill Street to the east, and the surrounding is predominantly 2-storey terrace dwelling houses in single occupation. These are the existing floor plans for a 3-bedroom dwelling. These are the existing elevations. The proposed elevations. The proposal is for a 6-bed, 6-person HMO, with the internal layout being 2 bedrooms with ensuite on the ground floor with a kitchen, 2 bedrooms with ensuites on the first floor, 2 bedrooms with ensuite on the second floor. In regards to the shared amenity space policy T8 under the Reg 22 local plan, it's clear that the requirements state that HMOs should have a reception room, a kitchen room, or equivalent space. In this instance, the scheme fails to provide a separate reception room within the property, and the only accommodation provided is a small kitchen area that is around 10 square metres. The 6 occupants, therefore, would require the living, relaxing and working space within their bedrooms, resulting in poor levels of amenity space. The HMO density. Here you can see the 500-metre radius within and the location of the property on the plan. There are 42 HMOs within the 500-metre radius. Therefore, it is considered that the proposed HMO would provide a poor and inadequate level of amenity space, contrary to BNE 2 of the current local plan and policy TA of the Reg 22 local plan, and therefore is recommended for refusal.
Thank you for the presentation. Any member? Councillor Peake and then Councillor Field.
I'm going to speak in terms of personal experience because it's something that I do care about when it comes to the idea of having suitable, because it says refusal, kitchen, small eating area, doesn't provide, which provide access to rare amenity, blah, 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 and therefore not suitable. So the HMO that I lived in, imagine being in a room which is completely crowded. I've got about 4 feet that I can walk and I've got space. I'm starting to become a teacher. I'm there all day long. I'm getting really claustrophobic and I had nowhere to go. There was a narrow kitchen where you could stand sideways, maybe 2 people. The garden was overrun. There was no communal space. Thankfully, there was an area called Gidger Park next to Romford. So when you went for a walk, it was a conservation area and it was pleasant to go for a walk. But seriously, that used to really, there's nowhere to go just for a quick break. And I would not wish that experience on anybody else. So I'm glad this is up for refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Peake. Councillor Field.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation, Steffi. That was excellent. Just to say, it's very good to see kind of a precedent here seen in a refusal stating amongst the amount of communal space and particularly the lack of a second communal space. So I absolutely agree with that, and I think that's positive to see that in the officer's recommendations for the reasons as Councillor Peake has just mentioned. I also just want to highlight, I did have to laugh when I looked in the planning presentation, but it is true, just to quote page 9 of the planning statement, the conversion ensures minimal impact on local communities, addresses parking concerns and contributes positively to the housing mix in Mansfield. With a planning statement on like that and a lack of effort to go into that, as a member of the planning committee, I look poorly on such things. So thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Field. I'm sure we all take that on board. Now, I haven't seen, I think, even with my poor eyesight, Councillor Gilbourne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It was just really to reiterate what my councillor colleagues have said. You know, it just doesn't meet the minimum of what we would want to see in Medway. And even though it's in a great position if you're working in the hospital, it's not the sort of accommodation which I'd want to see anybody who's working there to have to live in. So I'm very positive with the recommendation for refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Nesterov.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Basically, I want to emphasize on all that points that were made. Yes, yeah, imagine sharing 10 square meters with 6 other people trying to cook. It's impossible, and this will definitely lead to a conflict and antisocial behavior. And yes, I think this is what Dave mentioned about Article 4 bringing positive change. This could be very comfortably a 4-bedroom HMO, and people could live comfortably there, but trying to push it to six obviously makes it unlivable. And yeah, that's my point.
Thank you very much. Are we ready to go to Vice Chair Councillor Bowen? Please, thank you, members.
The committee recommends the refusal of the application.
Chief Planning Officer.
Sorry, Chair, just on the first reason for refusal, the second reason for refusal, they've paid the required contribution, so it's just refusing on that one ground. Yep.
Thanks very much for clarifying that, Vice Chair. Is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor Peake. All those in favour of refusal?
That's 14, Chair.
That application is refused. That's everybody, I think. Can I just say that this was Steffi Thiedem's first presentation to committee, so unlike the chair, a completely faultless performance tonight. Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 10, which is to be introduced by Mr. Hockney, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. This site is 98 Grove Road within Strood. You can see the property outlined there in red, which is close to both Strood train station and also the town centre and High Street. Again, the aerial photograph of the site and the red line area, and some site photographs showing the existing property. The proposal is for the extension of the property with an L-shaped rear extension and dormer window, and for the conversion of the family house to a 4-bed HMO to be occupied by 5 persons. And what I would draw members' attention to on this one is the planning history. And this was an application that was submitted towards the end of 2025 and was withdrawn in February this year because of the service of the Article 4 and the concerns that we had in terms of the level of accommodation. And you can see from this floor plan, there was a single kitchen lounge area. There was two bedrooms on the ground floor, 2 bedrooms on the first, and 2 bedrooms on the second floor. This is the proposal that is currently for consideration. And you can see in terms of the quality of the accommodation, which I think was the point that Councillor Nesterov was raising in the previous debate, that the Article 4 has given us that control over what developments would normally be permitted development, because members rightly had concerns about not only the proliferation of HMOs within Medway, but the quality of accommodation that they were providing. So you can see from this floor plan that you've got a large kitchen diner area here, which is over 21 square metres, with a separate lounge area as well, with, say, an indicative sort of sofa and television in there. So it's got the two separate reception rooms, and again, the kitchen diner is extensive. In terms of the bedrooms, there's one on the ground floor. There are 2 bedrooms on the first floor, and then a single bedroom within the loft space. So again, you can see in terms of the quality of the space for the bedrooms, it's increased. The number of ensuite bathrooms which are proposed has again increased in terms of the percentage of bedrooms that have access to en-suites, with only bedroom 2 having to use essentially an off-suite bathroom. So in terms of the quality of accommodation, we think that has greatly improved from the concerns that we had previously. In terms of the HMO density, you can see from the plan here that unlike the area around sort of Gillingham train station, the numbers around Strood train station are considerably less. So in terms of the clustering and proliferation and subsequent loss of family housing, we don't consider that would be an area of concern in this application. And therefore we are recommending approval for the application with the amended conditions which are in the supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hockney. Just one question from me. I see we have some Kent Police comments, as we have on a number of these applications. These are presumably drawn to the attention of the applicant in terms of an informative.
Correct, yes.
Thank you very much. Open to members. Councillor Hubbard, I think, by a short leg to Councillor Joy. So, Councillor Hubbard.
Thank you. This is obviously in my ward. There's an image of the front of the property, and particularly the alleyway, which is adjacent. That's a rather good photograph of the alleyway. Normally it has trolleys stuck in it. I would like to see a condition where alley gating is put on the front and the back of that alleyway, because we're going to have a bike storage at the back, and it'd be pretty hard to traverse the length of the alleyway if it's full of rubbish. So my condition is that they look to propose to put in an alley gating at the back and at the front. Yes. That to me would resolve lots of issues in the area. I've taken umpteen photographs of trolleys dumped in it and reported it to Trolleywise, but at the moment it doesn't make any sense if you've got a bike storage at the back and you can't get your bike down the alleyway.
Thank you, Councillor Hubbard. Can I, just before I go to Councillor Joy, get some officer advice on that condition?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the area, at the red line plan, I'm not sure the alleyway is within the application site, and therefore I'm not sure whether it's wholly within the applicant's ownership or whether there are others. So we can certainly put an informative on, saying if possible that they should look at securing the alleyway, if members wish to attach that. Thank you.
Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Chair. I know in the area, with regards to parking, especially when you go into the weekends or at evenings. With the property having yellow lines directly outside it, I know there is a paid car park, but not a lot of people actually use that car park because I've been there a few times. And it's normally about half full. Just with some of the earlier applications on the HMOs, there was a parking impact. Was there a parking impact carried out on this? Because I know saying because there's a station now, but that doesn't mean that the people that are going to live in that property will not have a car. It could be complete stupidity to have a car in that area, but I just wondered if a parking impact survey was done in that area.
Parking, Mr. Hock?
In terms of a parking beat survey like the others, I don't believe there was for this application, but the reason was because the number of people that would reside in the HMO would not be significantly greater than that of a single family dwelling house. It was not deemed to be proportionate to look at the a parking beat survey in that same way, and I think combined with the fact that I think you alluded to the fact that it is very sustainable next to the station, those two factors essentially led our highways colleagues to consider that one wasn't necessary in this case because of the similarity between the two uses in terms of numbers of people residing. Thank you.
Okay, have I missed any other member? Councillor Peake?
I just want to wish Peter good luck in finding out about the ownership of that alleyway. We did this in Wakefield and Weeswood so many times. People seem to think, I mean, I personally think it's disgusting. People think it's okay to use an alleyway as a dumping area. Oh, it doesn't belong to MH Homes, it's council property. No, it's not council property, it's private, it goes round and round and round, and nobody wants to take ownership. So I just wish you luck that you do manage to find the answer to that one. And, you know, we really support what Councillor Hubbard said. If it's possible to do that, that'd be really good news. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Chief Planning Officer.
Chair, just building on what Pete said in terms of car parking, I'm sure Councillor Hubbard and Councillor Field are aware of this. This is in a parking restriction zone, and there is a condition which requires that parking management plan, so they can't apply for parking permits. So again, encouraging people without cars to come here because it's such a sustainable location.
Councillor Nesterov?
Just a quick one. I see the bedrooms became bigger with the new application. What's the minimum requirement for a bedroom? Because like 8 square meters is still not massively large, but what's the minimum requirement to be considered a livable bedroom?
Mr. Hockney, sorry.
Yes, I quite like the planning pop quiz that you're giving us tonight, Councillor Nesterov. In terms of the what we work from is the national minimum standards, and in terms of a single bedroom, that would need a floor area of at least 7.5 square metres, with a double bedroom being at least 11.5 square metres. So I think if you look at the proposed bedrooms here, they're all again significantly over in terms of the sizes, particularly bedroom 4, which would be the double occupancy. There it's 17.3 square metres. And as I say, the standard is 11.5 in the minimum standards. And just as illustration, if we go back to the withdrawn one, which prior to the Article 4 could have been carried out without planning permission, then 2 of the bedrooms, bedroom 6 and bedroom 1, were in fact under standard. So again, it's an illustration of the benefit of the serving of the Article 4, and not just in terms of being able to give us as the council and the local planning authority the ability to refuse the applications where we deem necessary, but, and from my point of view, critically, the raising of the standards of the quality of the accommodation that we are permitting. Thank you.
Thank you. Still, I wouldn't consider half a square meter significantly more than the legal requirement, which bedroom number 2 is 8.13, which is bare minimum, let's say. Thank you anyway, thank you.
I'd like Councillor Peake, you're sharp on the square meterage, yes, thanks. Any other member? Councillor Field.
Thank you very much. Just again, as Ward Councillor, just like to reiterate Councillor Hubbard's comments about supporting either conditional or informative around making sure that we gate those alleyways, particularly around the issues around cycle storage. I think that it clearly shows that there's a significant benefit to Strood North and Finsbury being included in the Article 4 direction here, through the fact that we've really been able to make sure that there's much better accommodation than was previously submitted. So yeah, that's very useful to hear and reassuring. But obviously, we're keeping an eye on this type of location as whether it's looking to become concentrated in terms of HMOs. Although the evidence so far suggests that it's not there yet, but given the types of accommodation and its location next to a station, it's one that we want to keep an eye on.
Okay, if there are no other members, I'll go to Vice Chair Councillor Bowen to propose the amended conditions, and perhaps she's also going to propose the informative on the alleyway. Thank you.
The committee recommends the approval of the application subject to conditions 1 to 8, noting conditions 2, 5 and 6 are amended, and also for the planning officer to look into putting gates on the alleyway to secure the area.
Is that seconded? Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Peake. Thank you. All those in favour?
That's 14, Chair.
Well, I think that's unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. That brings us to the final item on the agenda tonight, item number 11. And I've momentarily lost my notes as to, oh yes, this is to be presented by Jonathan Simons, who's waited very patiently. Thanks very much indeed. So over to you for the presentation, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Just before I start, I'd like to draw your attention to the supplementary agenda. We had 4 additional representations which were in the supplementary agenda. Mostly these raised no new considerations. However, there were a couple of new considerations in relation to concerns the property would be used as a HMO and not as two self-contained flats, and in relation to the revised parking layout. I will cover these through my presentation. Additionally, there is, in relation to these representations, we're proposing an additional condition, condition 5, in respect of removal of C3 to C4 permitted development rights. Thank you. So this is an application for the construction of a first floor and side extension, along with roof lights to front and a rear dormer to form two-bedroom self-contained flats. So here you can see the site outlined in red. So it's within the urban area of Rochester, and it sits on its own as a detached bungalow. Here you can see the site here from Google, and you can see this private sort of access track that goes towards the front, the side, and the rear. And this private access track accesses the rear of properties on City Way, Delse Road, and Howard Avenue. Here are some site photographs. The top left, on the left is the front of the property. The top one, you've got the existing parking space that serves the property. The bottom left, you can just sort of see this access road towards the properties at the rear, or the rear of properties on City Way. And then the photograph on the right is the private access track itself as you come from the tarmacked road of Howard Avenue. And then as you move around the site, top left you can see the side of the property. The bottom left is the location of the originally proposed additional parking space, which I will show you shortly. However, that's been relocated. The top right is the access track down the side of the property, and then the bottom right is the rear of the property where the existing garage is here, which is to be demolished to make way for the additional parking space. Here are the existing floor and roof plans. This is a single-storey, two-bedroom detached bungalow. Here are some previously approved plans. Last year, an application was submitted and approved early this year to give the property permission for an additional storey to convert it to a three-bedroom detached two-storey house. And here we have the proposed floor and roof plans that you're considering today. Flat 1 is on the ground floor for 3-person and 2-bedroom and has access to the rear garden. Flat 2 is the first floor and loft space for 4 persons and 2 bedrooms. It doesn't have access to the rear garden, so it doesn't have any external amenity space. However, it is considered that it is significantly over the standards for a property of this size, that it's considered to be acceptable. Here you can also see the proposals for the parking spaces. This is the existing parking space which would serve one of the flats, and at the back you've got where the garage was, and will be an additional parking space to serve the other flat. Here are the existing front and rear elevations of the bungalow. And then we move to the existing side elevations, and this west side elevation just shows the relationship of the property in relation to the neighbouring property at number 96. Here are the previously approved front and rear elevations for the approved for the additional storey. Again, the side elevations. You can see that sort of just from here, you can see that the property does sit just higher than the adjacent property at 96, and that's because it sits at a higher, the ground level is higher there, and I will show you some street scenes in a second. Here are the proposed front and rear elevations. Whilst the property would be 2 self-contained flats, it has the appearance of a pair of semi-detached dwellings. So therefore, it's considered that whilst this is an area of single occupancy houses, it wouldn't, in planning terms, be materially different in its appearance, and therefore not considered to be out of character. And here are the proposed side elevations, and you can see the dormer that's proposed here. The dormer itself is of a size that could be constructed under permitted development if it were, say, constructed in an alternative location. Sorry, I went the wrong way there. Here are the street scenes. So you can see that the existing bungalow here is a higher ground level than the adjacent property, and then you can see it's proposed the ridge would be higher, but that would be sort of as the pattern of the road goes along. And then lastly, this last slide just shows the view from Castle Avenue as you come down towards Delse Road. This is pretty much the only location in which the rear dormer and extended property would be truly visible. You see from the blue arrow is marking out where number 98 is, and you can see that in that view, it would be in the same view as existing dormers, both on Delse Road and then on the rear of properties in City Way, and therefore it's considered that the application is considered to be acceptable as set out in both the papers and supplementary agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can I open it up to any member? Oh, well, thank you very much for clarifying the... Did I see anybody? No. Thank you very much for clarifying the extra condition on the 2 self-contained flats. I'll hand over to the Vice Chair, Councillor Bowen.
The committee recommends the approval of the application with, excuse me, with conditions 1 to 5, 5 being an additional condition, and what else? I've forgotten something, sorry. What was the other bit? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think condition 5 was the 2
Yeah.
flats, yeah. Okay, is that seconded? Seconded, Councillor Peake. Can I see all those in favour, please?
That's 13, Chair.
May I see all those against?
That's 1, Chair.
Okay, well, that application is approved, which I believe brings us to the end of this evening's meeting. So can I thank all officers for their presentations and members for their contributions. Meeting is now closed. Thank you.